Dear friends, grace and peace from God our Father, from our crucified and risen Lord, Savior, and King. Amen. Well, it all began in the East, in Persia, in modern-day Iran, Iraq. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, it began in a garden. And it was a place of life forever, of everything that they possibly needed. But it didn't last long. And so it was when Jesus was born, there came these magi, these astrologers, or these kings, these people of great importance. They came from the east, from that region of Iraq and Iran, we're not sure exactly where, to offer their worship of this that they called a newborn king. But most of the references to Jesus as king, none of them came from Jesus himself, but the ones that were when Jesus was referred to as king came mostly later in his life from his adversaries. Pontius Pilate, we heard today, asks, "So, are you really a king?" And then he decides to mock this one that some may be thinking was a king, with a sign up above that said, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, ha ha ha." And the humiliation of Jesus' naked and suffering body in that garbage dump, which is what Calvary, Golgotha, was, that was so clear that this was anything, Jesus was anything but a king, but just hanging there between two criminals. It was ludicrous. So today we are celebrating the kingship of Jesus. And we read the story of his trial. We remember his suffering and death on the cross. And we celebrate the cross, this instrument of Roman capital punishment, of torture, of pain, and of death. That is our symbol. It reminds us, this day does, that we have been marked with that cross on our forehead. We've been signed and sealed with it forever, wherever we go. Pilate is laughing at the idea of Jesus being a king. And the ridicule continues on the cross. There on the cross we hear this story of a request, first of all, of Jesus. "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." This comes from the crowd. Ha, ha, ha. Try to get down from there. What kind of king are you? They were the ones who were those who had nailed him to that cross, and those who were coming there for a good time, because this would really show up to the world who he really is. But Jesus knew that a king does not make any power play for himself, that he is not going to have any respect. The king who refuses to obey God with his own life and death is not a king who will deserve our attention. And then comes another request from one of the thieves on the cross, who yells out, "If you really are the Christ, the Messiah, the son of David, King David, save yourself and us on our crosses." Now, this one wasn't from those laughing on the side. This was somebody who was suffering there with Jesus. And he was also bleeding with Jesus. And he says, you can get us out of this. Now, this request is from a guy who had, well, you could say, an enlightened self-interest here in his request. And he was looking only to his own situation. It was a selfish request. He did not know that new life comes through death, not by avoiding it. And then comes this third request that we sang today from the one on the other side of Jesus, and says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Now, Jesus was silent to the first two requests, but to this one, Jesus answered. And he says, today you will be with me in paradise. He doesn't say heaven. He uses a Persian word. A word from the East. Today that you will be with me, and that garden will be restored to what God intended it from the very beginning. And this was the response of Jesus because his request came out of faith and hope and trust in this one who was hanging there with him. Jesus spoke clearly and acknowledged him that this in the palace of the king's garden in the east would be restored. It could be translated, said, today you will be with me in God's garden. That Easter garden that is yet to come. That I will be with you, Emmanuel, God with us. And so as we look to the cross this day as Christ's throne, that the world thought would be ridicule and humiliation to the worst possible degree, we lift up as what that destructive force, God can even overcome the worst that the world throws at us. And so I challenge you this day to dare to trust the King's edict, the King's judgment, verdict from the cross. Today you will be with me in paradise, for that is his edict for you as well. That comes to fruition through the faith that was of that thief on the cross and for us as well. So no matter what may come in our life or our death, we come with this same faith, begging to be remembered in that Easter Garden of Eden. That Jesus' promise is for you today the same as it was for that thief on the cross 2,000 years ago. The promise of life through his victory over death. And through faith and in that Easter garden, life will be restored and all things will be made new.